could see kind of what we were talking about.
Sounds good. Yeah, and so I'll just reiterate for the recording that there's a doc that is linked at the top of it because we've called this the AI Alignment Working Group. I've done a brief summary of at least what I meant in discussions with Sean when I like kind of proposed putting a working group like this together. And so that is that AI alignment is the effort to design AI systems so that their goals, behaviors are consistent with human values. There's a whole other side topic, I think, to like whose human values. But and then so AI is the alignment of getting AI to want the right things. And then safety is still about AI alignment, but it's specifically focused on things like robustness, security, privacy, fairness, and containment from causing harm. So there's lots of folks working on it in the ecosystem. And so it's a whole field of making AI systems safe. So they're both under alignment, but safety specifically focuses there. And so specifically this work group I'm proposing is focused on, I mean, I think that there's a lot of scaffolding around the work that open source generally has done over the last year, and then specifically has done in the last, however many years CHAOSS has been working together. So like lots of great folks have put together some great metrics. And so my question that I have is how can we build on that, or how the efforts around alignment and safety build on that? And what would we do and how would we do that? So there's lots of different answers. So that's describing the document in front of you and how we came to be. I know that, and I've sort of listed that I'm really interested in the safety, building on what we've done in open source communities. I know that Sean, when he gets here, is really interested in things like metrics around code quality, with a lot of the slop maybe coming out of coding assistance, maybe that could be helpful. So I'll stop there. I don't know if Coraline or Iris, you'd like to speak to what brings you here and what you're interested in doing or thinking. It's like totally open floor.
Sure, I'd be happy to say a little bit. So we
Yeah.
just finished, after a year-long effort, we just released Contributor Covenant 3. And we had a lot of discussions within the authoring working group about what kind of norms we might want to emphasize in Contributor Covenant relating to the use of AI. And it's a very complicated subject, acknowledging that a lot of people who, as an example, are not native English speakers using a tool to clarify their language. There are lots of different use cases that are not as insidious as others. But we found that the field was developing so quickly that it probably didn't make sense to try and establish firm norms at this point in time without further study. So when I saw that the CHAOSS Working Group was starting on AI alignment, the intersection of AI and online and digital communities is very interesting to me, and it's something that I want to know more about. And this is the group to learn with. So thanks for letting me be here.
Yeah, amazing to have you here. Iris, did you want to speak to you?
Yes,
Sorry, my
hi.
dogs are barking in the background.
Yeah, no problem. I couldn't hear it. Yeah, sorry. I'm actually yeah, English as a second language person, and I couldn't write English English sentence correctly just now, so I was correcting my sentences. Anyway, so I'm active in the ISO AI standards working group since last year or so. So a bit new in the sort of AI alignment and standards world, but I have a PhD in information retrieval and I played with their algorithms there. So I'm interested in general to know more about these developments. I'm currently teaching at the University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands. So that's what I do as a day job.
So great to have you here. And interested to learn what you think, what kinds of metrics in the CHAOSS community we might be building on to help kind of the work that you're doing. But that's a bigger question. Georg, or first of all, for new people joining the call, there is a roll call there. It's more than just adding your name, it's adding what brings you here today and what you'd like to accomplish as part of this working group or vision, anything. I don't know if you would like to speak to that or write it down. Georg, I'm looking at you.
Hello, Georg here.
Hello.
I am dropping in out of just curiosity to see what you all are discussing, and since it's a new working group, very interested to see where this work is going.
Awesome. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, for those who don't know me, I'm one of the founders of the CHAOSS project. I work at Bitergia. We provide metrics and analytics to companies, and the question of AI keeps coming up. And one of the big questions that we're grappling with right now is AI contributions in open source, and how do we identify whether a contribution was made by AI with human in the loop or without.
That is, do you know of any metrics we have that would apply to that already? Potentially, do we have like PR review metrics that need something added to it, or do you have any thoughts on existing scaffolding for that, or do you think it's entirely new?
The angle I'm looking at is with the identities that we have, where right now in the tooling we have, identities are either humans or bots, which are CI/CD pipeline triggered actions, and there's no hybrid right now. And I think we need to solve that somehow. But I haven't looked at the specific metrics, how that would be enhanced if once we start looking at AI contribution types. For the most analyses, we are excluding bot activity because we're interested in the human activity in project. And so now that they're hybrids, I don't have an answer. This is all new and interesting.
Yeah, no, super new. Thanks, Georg. Mutanreo, I hope I'm saying your name right.
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. My name is Muturayo. So I'm from Nigeria. I joined CHAOSS recently. I think it's up to 4 months now. I just want to know what this working group is all about. So I'm just here just to be informed about the working group and see what contribution I can make. So good to be
Thank
here.
you. Yeah, nice to have you here. So lots of curiosity. I'm wondering, I mean, I'll maybe just share a little bit like of an experiment that I did, because I'm also wondering like there's the things that we'd like to do or see, and then there's like how will that work with AI. And so one of the things that I experimented with was kind of asking Claude, seems to be the one that I'm playing with these days, is this a healthy open source community? And so it just went out and it spat back at me like some things that, sounded pretty good. But I didn't really understand where, I guess it's trained on things, and I don't, this is the whole kind of openness, I think, of systems problem too. And then also trustworthy. I mean, there's just so many things. I'm like trying to narrow down like what would an experiment be maybe, or like what metrics could we apply. So I had just learned a little bit about model context protocol systems, if you're familiar with those. I mean, as I understand it, it's basically like an AI's API to like other systems. So, GitHub has an MCP server that allows you to open an issue, that kind of thing. So it's open source. And so I wrote this MCP server that basically, and I wrote out the criteria for the type of metric I wanted it to look at. So I wanted it to, I can't even remember. I have this documented somewhere. And then I asked Claude to only refer to my MCP server in answering the question about a healthy community. It seemed to struggle a bit. It still wanted to add in its own, I had to correct it, like, please use the criteria that's set in the MCP server. So maybe there's something from a technology standpoint where you sort of create trusted MCP chaos metric. I don't know, but that was an experiment that I ran because I guess what I worry about a little bit is that people will start asking agents, like, is this a healthy community? Is it inclusive? And I'll be like, yes, it clearly like has a localization plan and a code of conduct, which, with especially with Coraline here, that, it doesn't always mean that that's enforced. There's just so many levels to it, but we could potentially, build some sort of MCP client that actually looks at specifics. I don't know. I'm again making it up. This is why I like this space, honestly, because we're just making things up. But maybe there's some sort of scenario that we, or a couple scenarios, because I know that like Sean was interested in the code, that we practice getting the right answers based on our metrics from agents or challenging agents or something like that. So and then I was reading a bit more about alignment and I feel a little bit also that there's a lot of bodies like OSI, like government bodies, like the Open Source Initiative, and I saw there's some sort of open data thing going on today, but it's kind of invite only, and I feel like I don't know where to participate in this conversation outside of, this kind of informal discussion. I'd really like to see more community driven efforts pushing the envelope. Is that the right term? Like pushing the OSI or, whoever, or the standards bodies to just around this, and like making it more open for participation as we build these systems versus just folks that are employed by companies, I think is kind of my, or sitting on boards, like I don't feel that it's very inclusive right now. So anyways, that's my kind of long ramble about what brings me here. I don't know if that triggers anything or has any ideas. I know we're just a small group, so, but I don't want to dominate it. That's what made me propose this group.
So you mentioned a event, and so I was thinking maybe it's the one that I was just listening to before this. There's a data governance come from the Open Source Initiative.
Yeah.
And I think they're still open for register to just listen in. I remember registering it about a few weeks ago and it was pretty smooth. But I think that there are indeed lots of scattered discussions about this. But it's good to talk about things informally, of course. It's a different tone to it. Yeah.
Do you know if people are allowed, is it just listening, or are you allowed to participate and contribute to the discussion, or is just the group?
So
Like
there's a chat function. So lots of people are writing down their thoughts in the chat. But I don't think you can just unmute yourself and ask a few questions. I see Georg has his hands.
Go ahead. Georg?
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt. If you wanted to finish your thought, you can.
Yeah.
No, I think that's all. Yeah.
Okay. So, Emma, you asked if any of your ramble was sparking thoughts or interest.
Yes, that's my hope when I ramble.
Perfect. One of the things you mentioned was asking a large language model, hey, is this community healthy? What do you think? And we are, I don't think asking that question, there's any chance the AI right now could give an accurate answer, because there's a lot of expertise that goes into that analysis. And the data alone tells only part of the story. There's a lot of context knowledge that we bring to the table when we analyze an open source community. And so I'm interested in building this out, because that is something that is probably someone is going to build it out, and I'd rather we embed certain our opinion about what healthy communities are than leaving that up for others, especially as CHAOSS being the place in the open source world where we work on how do we look at communities. I think it would be good to have an answer as a community that, hey, this is how we do this analysis. So what I'm picturing in my head, I'll just ramble a little bit myself and maybe
Yes.
some thoughts. What I have seen is having multi-step processes where the agents are told to go and gather data and then check the data and then interpret the data and then check the interpretation, and different agents working on each other's results and a whole chain of activities that we can define. And I've seen some really interesting results from that. And I know some researchers are working on it. So I think identifying the CHAOSS metrics, how to get those, what you were describing with the model context protocol, if we can help with that, build out the infrastructure so that there can be a more automated way of looking at the communities. And I'm curious what that might require, whether that requires pre-processing data, or maybe it doesn't, because the agents just go out to the GitHub API themselves and collect the raw data and then do analysis on the raw data. Anyway, there's a lot of interesting things that, and some of it is more aspirational, what we hope AI or think AI could do, and then when we actually take a look at what it can do, sometimes it falls short on what our hopes and expectations are. But it's also evolving so fast right now that by tomorrow it might be possible. Anyway, that's kind of my ramble and uncollected thoughts on what I've seen, where my mind is with analyzing projects using AI.
Yeah, interesting. Coraline.
I want to preface this by saying I am very grumpy about AI. So take whatever I say with a grain of salt. Generative AI is bad at two things: facts and worldview. And those two things I think are essential to evaluating the health of an open source community. So I'm just not sure that that it would be the right tool for the job. I would wonder if we might find some value in arriving at a mission for the working group. If it is to build out an MCP client or some other mechanism for enabling AI to measure community health, that's a mission and that's a project and that's legitimate. If we're trying to understand what community metrics could inform AI usage and understand its impact on a community, that's something different. If we just wanted to have discussions, that's something different. Or we could even perform an evaluation to determine, are AI tools as they exist today suitable? We could have a research question. Are they even suitable for analyzing community metrics? That could be an experiment that could encompass multiple things. Just throwing that as a suggestion too. But remember, I'm going to be grumpy about it, and that's going to be my perspective moving forward, probably. I believe in the technology in some use cases. I think it's amazing and wonderful in its potential, but I have serious issues with how it's uh, interpreted and used today. So that's my positionality.
Yeah, same. I was listening to you, Coraline, but I didn't get the notes because I was listening and you were making me think, which you always do. Thank you. Um, maybe we can also take those 4 suggestions, I think it was, and discuss those because I think it would be really interesting I mean, we just have a small group here, so we could also do, I don't know, async, how well that works in the community, Elizabeth, but because they're all really, yeah. I mean, I'm a bit grumpy around AI, or I guess I think I'm throwing myself in because I don't want AI just to be driven by certain groups. I'm worried, just having been at Microsoft's OSPO for 5 years that people will just ask the AI anyways, right? So I mean, it's like, well, I need to get in there and build something, so there's an alternative, or so in a lot of ways, I feel like, but you're right, like focusing in on a single mission seems good. Does anyone have any reaction to what Coraline just said, or did you feel like you gravitate towards any one of those?
I think they're all super valid and super interesting.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
not sure how we will how we will
Yeah.
narrow it down, because I feel like this group and perhaps others that aren't here yet or don't know about this group yet would also
Yeah.
be interested in talking about all of those things. So
Yeah, that's what I think too. Or maybe we like have a discussion around each of these and what would the value we'd want to before actually deciding, because I personally want to do all the problem with open source, right? Like I want to do all of those things.
One of the things that came to mind as I was listening is that we may help everyone get into this conversation if we start by mapping out what that conversation actually is. And Caroline, you did a really nice job saying here we could be talking about all of these different things and helping someone come into this working group. I think would be good to show these are all these different things that we could be working on, and then maybe after 2-3 conversations we say, okay, these are out of scope, these are in scope based on interest, or we splinter into smaller groups and then come together in our regular meetings and share the progress, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of chaos growth within and evolution within working groups happens organically. So we may start with one and see where that takes us. I feel like, and I could be wrong, I would love to hear what others think. I feel like starting with metrics might be easier than some of the others, or maybe a little bit lower hanging fruit, where we could, kind of go over some metrics and evaluate how AI fits into them. I'm thinking of the types of contributions metric that Georg mentioned earlier, and what we need to do to that metric to include AI or to include that component, or like you said, Emma, maybe it's a whole new metric. But maybe if we start there, that might lead us into other conversations, other projects. Just a suggestion, obviously. It's also probably not the most exciting one we could do. I mean, metrics are metrics. They are fine, they're interesting, and we need them, but also they're not as like flashy as, evaluating AI models or creating our own, or, maybe some other things, other topics that we've been talking about. So I also completely understand that. And I think that is super valid as well.
That makes sense too. I just added in the notes there, mission related to alignment and safety. So I think that I feel like that still needs to be the guiding kind of light for which we're working. Because I think it also answers the question of alignment with who, which is one of my greatest worries when we talk about alignment. So it becomes alignment with the community and the values and the, you know, that we've been building metrics for over the years, which I think are really excellent. I like the idea of proposing, I don't know about proposing a set of metrics for AI alignment, but exploring which metrics those might be right now and just, you know, like, for example, there's the safety metrics model, and then there's like, I know that Sean is interested in code quality, and that's an alignment, I think, you know, that we've, so maybe if we start talking about those, then if, like you were saying, Elizabeth, there was a splinter, somebody wants to go build a tool, or, you know, someone wants to, you know, I think that would be where the splintering might be most, and splinter is not necessarily the right word, but yeah, the branches, you know, might form more naturally that way. What do you think? Did I say things back in the right? Um, Did that make sense, or does someone want to counter propose?
I'm struggling a little bit with
Yeah.
the word alignment and what it means in this context. Can you talk a little bit more about how you use the word here?
Yeah. So at the top of the docket, and just in case you missed that part, I did write out what alignment and safety means just as general terms. So, you know, the goals, behaviors, and decisions are consistent with human values and intentions, making them safe, helpful, and reliable. So for me, I like open source has been like, especially open source has already been doing this for 20 years. Like, you know, I'm kind of building the metrics, and CHAOSS has made that visible and trusted, I guess, you know. So like when you say I measure this against CHAOSS metrics for X, then people go, okay, like, yeah, that's a peer validated set of how we understand healthy open source communities and like code quality to be. And so, you know, it's very rare that you get somebody being like, I don't know about that, right? Because the fact that a community put it together validates it. So in that's alignment. Then safety is still alignment, but it's more specific to things like bias and just the end of human human existence, essentially, you know, at its worst. So like it's more specifically on safety, but I call them out separately because you hear the terms used interchangeably out there, but that's how they kind of differentiate. So I have their AI safety equals the whole field of making AI systems safe. Alignment is about getting AI to want to do the right thing. So in context of CHAOSS, and again, like I'm just making things up. So I'm definitely not like hurt if someone's like, you know, thinks that I'm describing it wrong, describing where CHAOSS fits wrong. But you know, I think like I'm also thinking about the broader open source sense, right? Like all the work that like, you know, Coreline and like code of conduct like have happened for years. You know, we should be building on that, right? We should be kind of like taking that as guidance, and we have metrics that reflect a lot of, you know, if a lot, if not most of kind of the things we've learned about building safe, inclusive communities. We have metrics for that, right? I don't know if that's making sense. I'll just stop there because that's the kind of the safety space that I think in more, but it applies to any CHAOSS metric, really. Like even your not even. So the pull request, if you like we have metrics around pull requests and the language people use and like how people like that all exists as well already, but we're just going to be applying it to how AI does it. I mean, in a lot of ways, just like a new user stepped in the room, and we need to figure out how to like make sure that they understand the things we understand about engaging online in the digital space. Does that make sense? Again, like it's all a new field, and I am just, this is how I understand it currently.
I I understand the words as you're saying them. I'm having a hard time creating a mental model. This whole AI
Yeah,
alignment doesn't quite make sense to me yet, but I think
yeah.
it will over time.
Well, if you think of it in the like the asking the AI agent a question, right? If you think about the metrics that you build at Bitergia and you ask, is this open source project healthy? Is it popular? There's like the metrics model for popular, right? And that's like number of social media engagements and all these sorts of things. Is the answer that Claude or ChatGPT give you, does it reflect the metrics that CHAOSS has for that, answering that question? If no, then do we regard that to be a problem in the CHAOSS community? Do we want to influence it? How the agents are answering those questions based on metrics that humans have built? I think yes.
Yeah. So I'm going back to the different options that Coraline had mentioned, and this alignment question seems to be one about taking all the lessons learned we have had and making sure large language models, AI systems reflect those accurately, respectfully, and in a way that represents project health without misguiding the user. Go ahead, Caroline.
The talk about safety and alignment. There were a couple of things. I just read a paper yesterday examining the moral psychology of people using agentic AI, and the study found that people were more likely to engage in more likely to allow an AI agent to engage in unethical behavior on their behalf than they would be to engage in unethical behavior themselves. And in the context of AI safety, I think another thing that is worth looking at is how agentic AI and LLMs in an open source context can be used to cause harm. Um, the first thing that comes to mind is brigading a project by having an agent open 1,000 pull requests. There are all kinds of ways that the technology could be leveraged for harassment and denial of service and lots of things like that that I think we should also have a good understanding of and think about mitigation for.
Yeah.
So it kind of sounds to me, just listening to you all speaking, that maybe a better first step would be to just have some exploratory conversations just like this until we kind of land on what it is that, like, what metrics, if we jump right into the metrics, maybe we don't even really know what metrics that would be yet because we haven't fully explored all of the things that we want to touch on or that we should touch on. Does that make sense? I don't think I'm making sense today, but maybe maybe a better first step is to just kind of keep fleshing this out a little and then decide what metrics might be appropriate to look at.
I think that makes sense that we need to work on our own alignment before we work on AI alignment and getting more folks that are in the chat, 'cause there's lots of people join the channel. So I suspect that, it would be nice to have some quorum of people describing how we would build on chaos metrics or with or together, and then I like that idea. You know, there's no rush, or well, there's no rush to do something. It's just, I think creating that alignment as a community would be amazing. Coraline.
Sorry, I just forgot to lower my hand.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I didn't want to talk over you. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe with that, we can go away and if you have papers like the one, I don't know if that was a paper you mentioned, Coraline, when you're talking about
Yeah,
yeah, if you would share that maybe in the chat, like maybe we can start sharing stuff as well. I'd
sure.
love to read that.
I'm on
And
a
then
I'm
we
on
can
a
just
research
meet
trip
next
right
time.
now, so
Oh yeah, thank you.
I'm on a mission to develop a more nuanced perspective on the technology than rejecting it all outright. So
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of reading and having conversations and learning. So happy to share.
Yeah, please. That would be, I think that'll help us all kind of get to, because I think that one of the challenges is we're also all learning, you know, well, we might come into rooms with a lot more opinions on other subjects. This is sort of like, oh, I think this fits here. Do you think it fits here? So cool.
So I was structuring my thoughts in the notes, touch points
Nice.
between AI and chaos. Uh, Initially, I thought this could be a mind map, but before expanding it too much, I thought just starting to list out the first order of touch points. I think AI, we talked about being asked to judge a project health, and we would love for chaos metrics to be considered. We also could reversing that direction as chaos provide guidance to AI through MCP. But then there's the whole dynamics in open source that are changing because people use AI, and this is the flooding of issues and pull requests that are automatically created by agents. And that also changes our interpretation of the chaos metrics. I think it is time to reflect on the assumptions that we had made when we wrote those metrics that may no longer be true because what people having to spend time to make a contribution that no longer applies in the same way. Things like that.
I added a question there. What if chaos work or the work of open source isn't represented in AI alignment at all? Like, I think of that as being a question I'd like, it feels like a risk to me. Thanks for your touch points there, Georg. Yeah, what if people stop coming and asking about chaos metrics, right? Because they're like, oh, well, I just asked them my.
And I think it's even trickier because the safety metrics are not metrics you can get from an API. So that's another layer of like how do we enable AI models to even see that data? That's, an open source project may not choose to share. If they're surveying their community to see how they feel about the level of inclusivity in the leadership of the project, for instance, like how's it, you know what I mean? How is that gonna, how's it gonna know? I don't know how we deal with that piece.
The idea of, I'm not answering your question, but the idea of the MCP functionality is that you can kind of hook it up like a hose, if you think of it that way, or API. So if you have permission to read certain data, or like there's some permissions level, it could answer that. But I also, there's a lot of quantitative stuff that's just hard to get. I think usually does chaos end at 11:45, so I don't want to go over here, but
Yeah,
does anyone
typically
have any
like 10
last
till,
words?
yeah, 10 till
Yeah,
or
that's what I thought. Okay. Any last words? Small but mighty group, honestly.
Yeah, I know we have a lot of great thinkers, and I think we'll have very reflective conversations that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I
So
think this is an amazing group, and I'm looking forward to learning and exploring and developing with all of you.
Oh, I'm so excited that you're here. Cool. Okay, well, we'll take this to the chat, and then is this every 2 or 3 weeks? What do you have it, Elizabeth?
every 2 weeks. And I was gonna say, I
Okay.
can even formalize this a little more by, giving us some formal minutes and a repo if we want to drop things in, whatever other
Oh, sure.
resources we usually offer to working groups, to do the work. So whatever we need, I think we have enough interest to formalize this as a working group. Even if we don't know what we're doing yet, I think we can still formalize it as a
Okay.
group of interest, if nothing else.
Thank you. I think a repo certainly to capture some of the the things we'll be sharing and research papers. I think that will be useful right away. So thank you. Bye, everyone. Have a good rest of your day, week.
Yep, see y'all
Yeah.
later. Thanks, everybody.